Hey y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com. Today we're going to talk about pegboard essentials. All right, so today we are talking pegboard essentials because it is time for me to clean off my pegboard, do a little bit of rearranging, and I get questions all of the time about how I decide what goes where, what do you need to make a pegboard, what do you need to make it functional in your space. So that is what we're going to talk through today. The first thing that I am going to do, however, is to clean off and clean out some of the things that are on this desktop. Yes, it looks pretty good, but to me, it's feeling a little bit cluttered. So let me take just a moment to clean a few things off, and then we're going to take everything off this pegboard, which feels a little bit like a daunting task, but I think we're up for it. So let's get to cleaning up. Pegboards are absolutely a wonderful way to utilize vertical space in your craft room. And I get questions all the time about how to store things and how to maximize space. You've got to think vertical. I've had this pegboard for several years now. It is a basic pegboard sheet that you can purchase from Home Depot or Lowe's. We cut it down to a pretty large size. I think mine is 4 foot by 4 foot, somewhere in there. And I decoupage the front of it. So you see some gorgeous tissue paper with gold dots on it, and then a beautiful rub-on girl from Jane Davenport. I put that together to decorate the board, and then my husband created the border that goes around it. I love the versatility of a piece like this because you do have the opportunity to change how it is working for you depending on how your creativity is working. All right, so my pegboard is mostly emptied off. I didn't move everything just because I wanted to keep reference for a few things, but let me talk to you about some of the things that I use on my pegboard. I get most of my pegboard accessories at Home Depot, Lowe's. They often have like a variety pack. I'll also link some that you can find on Amazon. But you can take some of the basic pegboard accessories and manipulate them and make them work a little bit better for you. Let me talk to you about what I mean. So, first of all, you have just these basic hooks. I'll definitely stick a picture in here so you guys can see it a little better. This is your basic pegboard hook. It goes on in there. What I do with these, or what most people probably do with them, is take something like a pair of scissors, hook it on the hook. There you go. It's ready to go. What I do is I extend their use by using these mason jars. These are mason jars that I picked up at a thrift store. I think they're actually intended as like a candle holder. It has a little wire handle. I like the mason jars because they're clear, but you can find little buckets, little things, little pails, things like that, and they hook onto these hooks. And so I've extended the use of that hook to make it work a little bit better for the supplies I like to have. So if you have a lot of pencils and pens and things like that, then buying a few little pails that have a handle and then just slipping them on a hook, that is a really good solution. Another one of the big pieces that I use are these longer brackets. Again, I'll stick a picture in there for you. These longer brackets can hold a bunch of things. Again, I'll just use the scissors as an example. You could slide all of your pairs of scissors onto this and you'd have them all ready to go. You could put a bunch of rolls of washi tape, something like that. I use them to create shelves. I get this question all the time. Where'd you get the shelves for your pegboard? Well, I just use these brackets. So I have a couple of these brackets and then some spare wood that we had in our garage. Just happens to be white, I don't know, like hardy board. I don't know what it is. It's just white wood we had in our garage. And I make tiered shelves because I think when you display your supplies in a tiered fashion, you're able to see them clearer, which is fantastic. And it also makes it look a little bit more like a store. So I took two pieces and then just stack them right on top of each other. That gave me the opportunity to display them in a tiered way. I used this for my paints. I'll probably continue to use that for my paints. And I really like how it looks, and I like how I can see all of the colors. I don't have to dig through a bin. It works really well for me. There are several ways that I use this tiered system in my pegboard. I also really like using spice racks. This is the spice rack from IKEA. I think they're like $5 now, $4 or $5. When they started out, they were like $3. They were fantastic. How do I get the spice rack? Well, you have a couple of options here. I actually mount mine. I put screws all the way through, which of course kind of messes up what's behind here, but that's okay. It doesn't bug me that much. It'll be repaired later on. But you can also use your little hooks. Your spice rack will attach with these as well. So that's an opportunity, but really I just put this on you. Oh, another opportunity people forget about, you can use double-sided tape, like really strong command strips on the back of here. Stick that right on your pegboard. Is it part of the peg system? No. Does it still work for what you need? Probably. So that's an idea as well. I also had my husband cut, this is a little like 2x2. This one fits, one of them fits in here. Oh, there it is. This fits in the back, and again, gives me that tiered system that I really like for displaying some of my favorite products. So don't forget to consider shelves like this. And if all else fails, you can do the command strip method to get them on your board. Of course, that's harder to move around over and over again. The beauty of the pegboard system is that you can move things constantly, but if you're relatively sure you know where you want something like a spice rack or a shelf to go, then you can always add that on as well. The last big essential that I wanted to share with you is this one. This is a hanging file holder. It's actually intended for a wall, but it works fantastic on a pegboard because, again, those hooks, the basic ones that we did right at the beginning, hook right through it, and it will attach to your wall, and it's easily movable. It creates a really striking look. I got this one on Amazon. I'll see if I can find a similar one to link down below. But it just, to me, it adds versatility. Yes, you can stick with just hooks and your pegboard can be really, really functional. I like the fact that I can feature different types of my supplies, different types of product on my pegboard. If I'm wanting my planners to all be right here, I could have them all right here. If I'm wanting to display paints, I can do that. If I'm wanting to do tools, I can do that. For me, it's a mixture of really functional space, taking use of the vertical space, and also just being a beautiful part of my craft room. All right, I did forget, there is one other piece that I wanted to show you. This one right here is a longer bracket, and it has all of these little pokey out parts that are coming at you. This is where I hold all of my scissors. This is a great place. If you see this in a garage, you would stick like your screwdrivers in here or something like that. But for me, it's a great opportunity to display scissors, which I love. I love the look of these scissors. And then these are those like classic paper shaping scissors that we've had for years. And I just can't get rid of them because I think they come in really handy. So that is one other type of hook that you can get. There's all kinds of accessories that you can pick up for pegboards. There's little bins. There's just a plethora out there. Take a look at what's available near you. Try to think a little bit outside the box, how it might work for you inside a craft room as opposed to in a garage or in a kitchen. There's different ways to use your space, and there's different ways to use these accessories. Sometimes you have to think a little bit outside the box, but we as crafters are generally pretty good at that. Okay, now that I've shown you some of the essentials that I use on my pegboard and that I have used for years on my pegboard, it's time to do a little bit of rearranging to change things up just a bit and put things back on this pegboard. Let's do it. This pegboard has been through a lot. It has been in multiple craft spaces in my house, and it is still fun to rearrange and change things up. How do you decide the arrangement of what you're going to do on a pegboard? You need to consider what supplies you need on hand. So I like having my pegboard as a mixture of function and form, meaning that some of the supplies on here are primarily for display and some of them I use all of the time. For me, the acrylic paints that I had on here, I was using a lot, but they were a little bit harder to get to. So I wasn't really enjoying them being up higher. I have some Jane Davenport alcohol inks and some Nuvo drops that I don't grab for quite as often. So I can rearrange those and put those in a different spot just to make it work a little bit better for me. There is always going to be trial and error when you are setting up a pegboard. I do like to think in zones. So I have a painting zone. You can see I have a coloring zone. I have my file hanging folder in a zone. I knew I didn't want it just in the middle. I wanted it off to the side so that I could feature and balance out the giant rub on over on the lower right hand side. So it's going to be an experiment, but think in zones. A lot of people like to plan their pegboards kind of laying things on the ground and imagining it. I think there's nothing better than just putting things on the board, figuring out what looks good, what works. And the beauty of the pegboard is that you are able to make adjustments on the fly. Now, a few of these were harder to do than others. Every time I moved that spice rack, I had to move the screws that were holding that spice rack. So that got slightly more complicated as I was adjusting that and trying to make those work for me. But eventually I figured out exactly where I wanted, and that was one of the first pieces I needed to get in place so that I could start to work everything else around it. Now, this is where I have a slight caveat. When I utilize vertical space, keep in mind that I am 6 feet tall. I can pretty much reach the ceiling of this basement. I can reach all of these supplies on this pegboard because I can just reach. I just have a really high, tall wingspan there. But I will say that as you are arranging things, no matter what your height, use the things or put the things that you are planning on using more often down lower, closer to your eye level. The pieces that are up high are the ones that I don't grab for that often. I don't really go for these scissors that often. I told you the alcohol inks that are at the top, I really don't use, but the paints I use a whole lot. And I love that when I spin around from my craft desk in the chair, that I will be able to see all of the paints right there. It will be at eye level when I'm sitting at my craft desk, which is ideal for me. And of course, I had to take a moment and have them in rainbow order. Is there any other way to arrange your paint? It's so satisfying. Having them lower also is going to allow me to grab them a little bit easier. Yes, I have a very finicky arrangement of how my paints go on the wall, and sometimes they get knocked down, but now that it's lower, I'll be able to lift them out a little bit easier. All right, a few last minute adjustments here at the top. Again, these are pieces I don't use very often, so might as well put them up tall. They're still beautiful. They still add a nice touch, but they can be up a little bit higher. And I like what it's looking like. I'm trying to see if I can adjust this. I can't. That's okay. Now that my pegboard is feeling pretty good, I need to work on the underneath part. I have a lot of these clear acrylic containers. I use them to hold Felicity Jane supplies, enamel dots, and vinyl stickers. I'm cleaning out this other clear acrylic container I use for lots of odds and ends and a lot of times current projects, which is why it needed a lot of cleaning out. It had become a gathering place for all of the things that were just sitting on that butcher block top. I would just start to throw in there. It was time to go through it. And then I really felt like I was having too many little things out, too many little decorative pieces. I chose just a few that I really liked, the rainbow and the camera and the plant. And now I feel much better. It feels cleared out. It feels organized. It feels refreshed. And I love taking the time to do this in my space about once a year to keep things new. All right, here is the final product. I'm really pleased. First of all, it just feels good when you freshen things up in your space. I'm excited about being able to access my paint a little bit easier. I'm excited about having my planners up here and displayed. I'm just thinking it feels fresh and clean. I was able to destash a few things that were hanging out. I was able to add a few extra little touches for the whole look, and I'm really pleased. Thank you so much for joining me today to talk about some pegboard essentials. I'm obviously a big fan of pegboards. I think they are so versatile and so functional in your space, but they can also be so beautiful at the same time. As always, I will link supplies that I used down in the description box below, so you can be sure to check those out. I want to give a huge shout out to all of my Patreon family. I love the creative community that is over on Patreon. There are a ton of perks available over there, but the best part is probably the people. So if you are looking for a crafty place to land, check out the link down below in the description box and start your free trial for Patreon today. All right. I hope that you have a fabulous day. And as always, keep it creative.